I'm Ken Paulson, and we're on Sandy Beach's 23, unbelievably.
23, yeah.
And we're here with a very talented Sharon Vaughn, who also makes her home in Stockholm. What a cool city.
Yeah, very cool, as a matter of fact.
How did you pick that? It's not at all like Nashville.
No, actually, I kind of, in 2008, I kind of jumped ship. And I started writing in Europe a lot and lived in Ireland for a while. And very long story short, wound up flying to Stockholm and renting this little funky apartment. And my dog and I were there, and within 6 months it was a really good move because I had Song of the Year in Europe.
Tell us about that. How did that happen?
Well, there was a gentleman named Anders Hansen, and he had, oddly enough, come to Nashville. And he and I had coffee one day at Starbucks in Nashville in Green Hills, and he said, well, why don't you come to Stockholm and we'll write? But never thinking for one moment, that anybody would be crazy enough to do that. And so I jumped on a plane, and I had, before I left, I said, I'm coming. And he said, really? And I said, yes. So anyway, it kind of started up this whole thing, and it's like a spider web. Once you write with one person, that person tells another person, and then another person tells another person, etc. And so here I am, all of a sudden, boom, I'm writing with some of the top writers in Stockholm. And because Stockholm, Sweden, is pretty much the center of pop music around the world.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
There's a recent book about the origins with Ace of Base in the 90s
and ABBA.
It's just
yeah,
and
they're all good friends of mine, which is so
really?
weird.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. And yeah, if there's going to be a place you're going to plant a flag as a songwriter, not a bad place to do it.
Yes, but the flag I plant is, I say, because I do lots of boards and consultations and all kinds of stuff. But anyway, I say, if you learn how to write a song in Nashville, Tennessee, you by God know how to write a song. And that's the truth.
That is true.
Because the discipline is, it's different than anywhere in the world.
It's astonishing how many people think they can write songs, and then
your barber knows how to write songs, your checkout girl knows how to write songs.
But the first time they sit down with if they get a co-write opportunity with somebody, they realize what league they're in real quickly, and
yeah, it's pretty horrifying.
It is. So, how many years have you been on this? For those who are not familiar with Sandy Beaches, it's Delbert McClinton's operation, where it was once called the Blues Cruise. It's now Sandy Beaches. Have you been a regular for a while?
This is my 7th cruise.
Oh.
I started, I think, in 2000. I can't remember, but then when I moved to Europe, I missed several years. But I love Delbert McClinton and Wendy, his wife, so much, and she and I just went to Cuba together on the very first cruise, the Fathom cruises that went into Cuba. So, but anyway, it's opened up a whole vista for me of a different type of music. I've always been kind of a blues jazz singer in my heart and performing that, but I was a session singer for umpteen years in Nashville.
I didn't realize that.
During the heyday of the Nashville Sound.
Wow.
I'm one of the original Nashville Sound singers.
Wow. So what records would you be on?
Oh gosh. Rub It In by Billy Crash Craddock, Waylon Jennings' Rambling Man. I sang for Dolly and Porter for 7 years. Did the Opry every weekend.
Oh. Wow. Mm-hmm. Rub It In, written by Lang Martine.
Yes, I love Lang.
Lang's a good friend, and
what a great guy.
but it's the strangest thing. He's such a great guy, such a wholesome guy. All of his hits are dirty.
Well, that's okay.
Rub It In.
It's got to come out somewhere. You know what I mean?
Pointer Sisters, Should I Do It? I'd say Way Down for Elvis Presley. He doesn't have a wholesome song.
No, and he's such a precious guy. Yeah.
So we're talking to Spooner Oldham a couple minutes ago, and I was saying that there's always self-effacing remarks by songwriters who say, go to a party and they say, you know, what have you written and nobody knows any of the songs. You don't have that problem. Spooner doesn't have that problem. My heroes have always been cowboys is kind of universally known, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
And
that was a shock
and where did that come from?
because my heroes have always been cowboys.
Wow.
I was raised on a ranch at 7.5 acres, I think, in Orlando, Florida. And you know, Florida has been for umpteen years. It's been the capital of cattle raising. People don't know that in the U.S. But so I was raised a swamp girl on the edge of the Econlockhatchee Trail creek, and there was this guy. I'll tell you this quickly. When my dad just started, he was a builder, but he loved horse racing. And I'm actually writing a book about the early origins of these crazy bush track things in Florida. But he hired this guy named Arlie, and he used to break the yearlings by running them round and round and round the paddock. And I would sit on the fence with my toes looped under the rail, thinking he was Roy Rogers and I was his girlfriend. But Arlie would ride around and around, never said a single solitary word to me. But I loved Roy Rogers with all my heart and soul.
And it came through in the song?
Yes, and when I finally met him at the BMI Awards, it was, of course, after Heroes had been a hit for a long time. And I walked up to him and I told Alan, the photographer, I said, "Follow me. Roy's here. I'm going to have my picture taken with him." And so he did. Poor thing. You know, he had to run around all night. And then finally I had my shot. And I had on a green velvet gown. And in my dream that recurred, I always had on a red velvet gown sitting on that fence.
Wow.
But I went up to him and I said, and I stuck my hand out, and I couldn't say Mr. Rogers because it's a lovely day in the neighborhood.
Right.
And I couldn't say Roy because it was too familiar. And so I kept going, Rook, Mr. Rook, Rook, Mr. Rook. And he finally took both of my hands in both of his, and he said, "Sweetheart, what are you trying to say to me?" And I said, "My name is Sharon Vaughn. I wrote My Heroes Have Always Been Cowboys because I love you. I've always loved you my whole life. I love you. I love you. And I can't help it. I love you." And he went, "I grew up a dreaming of being a cowboy." He sang my song to me.
Wow. That's as good as it gets.
Oh, it chokes me up to think of it this day, you know.
Did you ever make the trip to Roy Rogers Museum out in California?
No, but Jerry, Jerry, who used to work for BMI, he worked out there, and gosh, no, I never did.
I happened to family trip. We were looking for some place to stop, and it's kind of out of the way, but the whole museum was full.
Jerry Woods.
The whole museum was things that Roy had shot and had stuffed.
Don't tell me that.
So,
I'm such a such a pacifist.
I'm sure he did it lovingly, though, and preserved them forever.
And with a gentlemanly fashion.
There's no question about that. But it was cool, and it no longer exists.
I know. I heard that when they dismantled it.
Yeah.
He called me.
Did you ever pitch Roy with a song?
No.
'Cause he recorded kind of late into his
yeah,
career.
he did. You know, he and Clint Black sang Heroes on a show one time.
Oh, wow.
And I've had it sung at the Kennedy Honors, you know, when Willie sang it for Robert Redford. And that was wonderful and moving, but boy, having Roy sing it.
I love that.
Come to Mama.
That is a wonderful story. So, what's your role on the boat? You show up on songwriters events and you tell fabulous stories
And you know what is so funny? I think they asked me to come on because mainly for my stories, because you know I think songwriters really at the heart of it all are storytellers. And somebody came up to me the other day and said, "Sharon, I knew you was a songwriter, but I didn't know you was a comedian."
You're pretty spontaneous. It just whatever you say, whatever crosses your mind.
Well, sometimes it shouldn't be said, but yes, I do.
So, are you currently writing with any project in mind, or?
Yes, I have several things, and I'm also working on. I just had a musical with Rupert Holmes and Melissa Manchester that opened in Houston. That ran a very successful run.
And what was that called?
The Sweet Potato Queens.
Wow.
Yeah, and now we're looking for the next step of that show.
So you all three wrote for it?
Yeah, Melissa and I wrote the music. Rupert wrote the book, and he's like the most famous book writer in Broadway.
Yeah.
And he's also the guy who wrote and performed the Pina Colada song.
I know.
If you love Pina Coladas.
I have the collected works of Rupert. They're always smart stuff, and
Very smart. He's a very brilliant man.
that's especially that first album called Widescreen before he actually had a hit. Just great stuff. Oddly, even after he had success with Broadway, I saw him at a Barnes and Noble. And
He was selling his books. He was on a book tour.
and he was performing. So he did.
You can't shut him up.
Yeah. He did Pina Colada in the corner of the Barnes and Noble.
Oh,
in,
he will
in
do it
Brentwood,
anywhere.
Tennessee.
Yeah,
So,
anywhere. It doesn't matter.
well, perhaps you should get him on the ship as well.
No.
Okay. Hey, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
And you too,
And
Ken.
and
Thank you.
I look forward to your future work, but also, what's your next date on the boat? Do you have one more?
2 shows tonight.
Okay.
I'm on at 7 o'clock with that crazy Jason and Kimmy. We're doing the Lubbock thing again, and then at 9 I'm doing the songwriters thing with the headliners,
Oh man,
which
that'll
is
be great
so fun.
That-
Al Anderson, Al is really the reason I'm involved in this camp at all, because he and I started writing together a long time ago, like 97 or something like that.
I was on the flight down from Nashville. Al and I happened to sit next to each other, and we had the best time. Mainly me interviewing him.
Yeah,
but-
because he's not a brilliant conversationalist.
He'll-
Because he can't hear you.
well, he had a lot to say, and it was terrific. Thank you again.
Thank you,
A
Ken.
pleasure.
So nice to meet you.